Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of From the Vault. With me tonight, as always, I've got Nathaniel. How you doing, man?
Hello, I am all right.
Good.
I am tip-top.
And I keep forgetting to introduce myself. I'm Dan. Hi, guys. Maybe
I should introduce you. You introduce me, you're like, hey, Nathaniel, and I'm like, hey, and with me tonight is Dan. But maybe that's a loop. I don't really want to get stuck in a loop.
Yeah, that could be bad. Anyway, so this week, we've missed a week, actually.
We did miss a week.
We got back from Birmingham, which we'll get into in a minute. Gary, and
that was the takeaway from Birmingham. Was the Gary chant?
Yeah,
chanting.
And we were pretty knackered, pretty spent, and had a bunch of plans, so schedules didn't quite line up. So we are recording.
I slept for a whole week, and Dan almost died.
And
that's the story we're sticking with.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's a pretty good one. So Birmingham, Gary Campbell won a bloody GP.
Yeah,
how good was that?
It was pretty great. It certainly picked me up after I scrubbed the day and got choked a lot.
To be specific, you mean the card, the green?
Yeah, my opponents did not literally put their hands around my throat and deprive me of oxygen.
Right. Okay.
But they did it metaphorically by playing the card choke. I faced a lot of Maverick. I faced way more Maverick than I expected to. My Maverick opponents were surprised when I was like, oh, I've faced Maverick in this event. And they were like, really? There are other players who play Maverick? And I'm like, yeah.
Maverick's on the serious uptick. I mean,
there's dozens of you.
There's more Maverick players than there are Threshold players, so,
Yeah, but that's because Threshold is a bad deck.
Come on, man. Why you gotta do me like that?
But yeah, no, Gary played Moonstompy to a finals... Well, I guess I can't say finals finish. I guess winning finish?
Winning finish.
Yeah, to a winning finish.
It's quite rare that you say that, I guess, when it comes to GPs. So.
Yeah, it was really, really awesome. It was great. Yeah. Specifically, it was awesome. It was awesome because Gary won, which is really cool because Gary's such a good, big part of the Scottish Magic community. Mm-hmm. Having him be the guy who won the first GP for a Scot, or for Scotland, is a really cool thing. Mm-hmm. And it meant that everyone was just rallying around him. There wasn't people being like, oh. I mean, I'm glad it's a Scottish guy, but did it have to be that guy? Everyone was like, I'm pumped it was Gary. So it was that, but also it was just cool to have a Scot winning and to have every single Scot in the venue there at the finals, watching the coverage over the over the shoulders of the coverage announcers. And just being incredibly hype for somebody we all know doing so well.
We'll put a link to the Twitch VOD, but
it's genuinely worth watching.
it's
that is a really cool moment.
Mm-hmm. It's magical. I imagine that most of our audience is Scottish. If anyone isn't, that's great. We're doing a great job. Although I'm not sure that our outreach is quite there. We're still trying to get on iTunes and that. But anyway, for anyone who doesn't play in Scotland or isn't aware or anything like that, we've never, there's never been a Scottish GP winner before. As Nathaniel said, Gary's basically the godfather of the scene. My understanding is that he's the first registered DCI number in Scotland. And he's been to a bunch of Pro Tours back in the heyday. I think is it a double digit?
I do not know. I know he played Pro Tours 10 years ago, and I do not know anything else.
I don't know. Maybe it's not that. Anyway, probably should have got that figure. Bunch of Pro Tours a while ago. Guy's a big deal in the scene. And it's really cool for him to be back on the tour and obviously to win a GP. It's amazing. Really, really historic moment for us as a community. And I mean, as you're saying, the atmosphere on Saturday night, because it was the Legacy GP, obviously, we're talking about...
you don't win standard GPs with Moonstompy.
Nope. The atmosphere was insane. It was there were people that had left the venue because they had a bad day and were just out doing non-magic things and heard that Gary was in top 8 and just rushed back to the venue. It was really, really magic. And congrats, Gary, if you're listening, because that was awesome.
My favourite bit moving on from it, because obviously it was really sick that Gary won, and it was really awesome, being there and being part of the moment. But my favorite bit moving forward is that now his list, everyone's like looking at it and being like, well, this must be right.
Yep.
Like, I mean, he won, so it must be correct. And like Gaz was playing like 2 Khans, I think, instead of like 2 Chandras.
Yeah.
And so now everyone's like, oh, I mean, Khan must be great in the deck. This guy's onto something. I wasn't really thinking about Khan, but like, oh man, this looks really good. And like, you see a bunch of articles that are like justifying the Khan really hard, and then like Gary was like, nah,
the Khan is bad.
Nah, the Khan is rubbish.
Yeah,
I didn't want the Khan in my deck.
He split them with the Chandras, right? He had a 2-2 split rather than the 4 Chandras. And you're absolutely right. There's all these articles. Like even Sean Brown, the guy that does This Week in Legacy, he put up and he was just looking at the Khans. He's like, well, I think I prefer the Chandras, but I mean, this guy won a GP, so he clearly knows what he's doing. And I pinged him and I was like, yo, the Khans are bad. Don't play the Khans. And he was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, Gary hated them all day. He also... more fun trivia about Gary's tournament and his list. He was playing Scalp Clan Berserkers in the sideboard for the Storm matchup, and actually didn't physically have the cards for the first few rounds of the tournament, and had like a 12 or 13 card sideboard, however many Scalp Clans he was playing.
Yeah, he got some before the top 8, thankfully. Although I don't think there was any Storm in the top 8, so it's fine.
No, I think it was like round 4 or 5 when he got him, but yeah, pretty good.
There's just a bunch of fun stories. I do like that this weekend of GPs was like kind of like just a weird nonsense weekend,
right?
So Gaz wins despite having like a 13 or like 12 card sideboard for a good
12,
portion of day one. Yeah, good portion of day one. And also like Gaz won a GP by throwing bridges at people. It was great. But then also, like, Simon Nielsen wins a GP despite sleeping in and missing round 9.
Yeah.
And getting
X2.
A game loss. Or getting a match loss. Yeah, he went X2, losing only to, like, I think somebody in day 1, and that match loss. Yeah, losing to Mono Black in day 1, and that match loss.
It's insane.
And, like, it's kind of crazy to just be like, I didn't need it. I didn't need that
these
match.
These things happened, yeah. I didn't need these cards. I didn't need that match. Gaz, so yeah, as you say, he won the throwing bridges at people. He won by with Pierre and Kieran Nala. Fantastic card in the deck. And he had people coming up to him as we were all surrounding him, jumping up and down, chanting his name. There were guys that weren't from the Scottish community that were walking up to him with their Pia and Kieran Nalars and asking him to sign them, and it was just brilliant.
Oh yeah, that was really awesome.
Oh, it was just so good. I mean, it's just such a brilliant moment. And yeah, so we'll link to the coverage because it is fantastic, and the commentators do an absolutely bang up job. Because of course we had Riley Knight in there, who is a Glasgow local and understands the significance.
So Riley Knight is now a Glasgow local and knows a bunch of the Scottish guys.
Yeah.
So he had, during the finals coverage, he had a Facebook chat open and like was having the Glasgow guys like type things to him that they wanted him to try and say. He didn't say all of them because none of them were safe for the stream. But they were like, they were feeding him names of bridges. So when you hear, if you watch the coverage and see Riley like yelling about different names of bridges that that Gary has, because Gary ends up with like 3 bridges in play by the end of the last game. Then yeah, that's Riley being fed them by the Glasgow guys, and he can't pronounce any of them.
It's amazing.
It's incredible.
Oh, it's so good. So, what did Gaz battle his way through? He beat Dredge, and then Steel Stompy. We had a Stompy Mirror in the semi, and then he beat Kowalski in the final on Grixis Delver.
Yes, which I mean, brilliant. You probably couldn't ask for a better matchup in the final. I mean, I guess there were probably a few better matchups, but Grixis is kind of exactly what you're bringing Moonstompy to a tournament to face.
Mm-hmm. And even when we were in the semi-final and it was Steel Stompy versus Moonstompy, and we were both, everybody was standing there watching Bated Breath and just thinking, whoever wins this gets to face Grixis in the final, because the other semi-final was Grixis versus Grixis.
Yeah. The top 8 did feel a little bit like... It felt a little bit like Grixis and anti-Grixis.
Mhm.
Although I guess it's more like Deathrite Shaman than anti-Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah.
Because there was like a Kess deck right in the top 8, and also
There was a
I think
Kess
just
pile
a
deck,
regular... There was a Kess pile. It was more like a Grixis control deck with Kess, right? I know that's probably... like the difference between that and pile is fairly academic, but I don't think it had green.
Yeah, no, you're right. It only had green for the shaman activations. You're right. There's no abrupt decays or anything.
It only played one green land in its deck. Stupid Deathrite Shaman.
That pile. I mean, yeah, it's I guess
there was a pile deck as well. I think
there was. The Kess deck's really cool. I'm a big fan of it. So let's run through it. We had one check pile deck, that Kess Grixis control deck. 3 Grixis Delvers, Dredge, Steel Stompy, and Moon Stompy. So it was a cool tournament. A lot of Grixis Delver showing up in the top 16. We had an additional 3 more copies in the top 16, so significant percentage.
That deck is still good. And at the very least, it is perceived to be the best deck in Legacy. So a lot of the best players, especially the ones who don't know Legacy that well, or who know Legacy a bit but don't play that much Legacy, but who play it for like a GP, will pick up Grixis and give it some reps beforehand and play that and play it to a reasonable finish because they're good. Hard to say how much... Like, I don't know. I think it was relatively diverse, but it was a little bit like... spheres versus cantrips.
Definitely.
But, you know,
I mean, Dredge is kind of the odd one out, and it's really weird that Dredge top 8, the guy did a bang-up job getting there, because it's been a while since that deck's had a result like that. Interestingly, I'm not sure you saw them, but the results for Hamburg over the weekend, just while we're on the topic of what's happening in Legacy at the moment, there were no Grixis Delvers in the top 8, which is... I mean, that's not happened in a while for a kind of major event. And I think it's also like you just touched on a lot of pros or maybe really good players that aren't quite as familiar with the Legacy that will pick up Grixis Delver, whereas that the MKM series is generally the hardcore Euro Legacy folk who are, pretty much a lot of them Legacy only players.
Legacy only players. Well, a lot of them do play Grixis Delver because a lot of them do play to win. A lot of them also play like their. I mean, that's not implying that playing a deck that isn't Grixis Delver isn't playing to win. But like a lot of them play like another deck that they've played for 10 years or something crazy.
Because they're veterans. I just want to run through it because if you've not seen it, because this is all just a whole bunch of Grixis hate basically, and it's no surprise. There was the Elves deck that won the tournament in the hands of Julian Nab, well known. I mean, probably the most well known Elves player.
Yeah, that's not surprising. I'm not surprised at all that Julian won a tournament. I'm not surprised that he did it using Elves.
There's a Miracles deck. Again, that's a pretty bad matchup. There's a Belcher deck.
Ooh.
Belcher made it in. Ooh. So I'm sure to.
Belcher sounds good against the other 2 choices. I'm pretty happy with Belcher against Miracles and Elves.
2 Moon Stompies. Interestingly, I'm just checking if either of them have Khan in them. Nope, they're all on Chandras, so. And finally, 3 Turbo Depths decks. One of which is on the Deathrite Dark Confidant plan, so the Slow Depths. Then there's one that's kind of half-half, where it's playing 3 Deathrites and no Dark Confidants, and that one's kind of interesting. And then there's the kind of sort of quote-unquote old school, just straight up turbo, I'm going to combo kill you version.
I mean, surely just playing 3 Deathrite Shamans is not committing that hard to not combo killing you.
Sure, and I think it's just correct, if I'm quite honest. Like, I just think that playing Deathrite in that deck is just, right.
I mean, it does, like, contribute to... much faster, not much faster actually, but it can contribute to fast kills still, right? Because it makes
definitely, absolutely. I just think that the card should be getting played in the deck, and I think it's interesting to see that somebody's kind of playing the card, but not necessarily saying, "Oh, we don't need to play Dark Confidant, we don't need to go that slow, we can still play." a lot of the turbo elements. I mean, this guy's doing some interesting stuff, and that there's a Remanap excavator in the main as well. But all this just to say that like you can do some really interesting stuff with your 75 out of this deck. And it's, I mean, I think it's been a top 5 deck in the meta for a while now. So,
I mean, it's very good against Grixis as its main thing.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And Death and Taxes has been getting a lot worse, which is a good deal for any deck trying to make Marit Lage that isn't lands. Because, I mean, I don't know. Actually, I have no idea how Death and Taxes faces off against lands. I can imagine it being very bad for Death and Taxes because they're a creature deck, but also Death and Taxes has weirdly good matchups sometimes against weird things.
Yeah, we need Holt here for the comment. But it's anyway. All this to say that we had one major event where Grixis was all over the place, as was Pile, and then the next weekend, although it's a very different crowd, there's definitely a lot of overlap in terms of who's going to be there, and we had no Pile or Grixis in the top 8. So Legacy's pretty great. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's interesting. So back to Birmingham. Your tournament was pretty average.
I got choked a lot.
Yeah, and I
played Grixis Delver instead of Blue Red Delver, which was probably right. I did face something against Storm. I didn't win, but that was a really tight set. And I don't think there's anything I could have done that would have meant that I won. So I think that both me and my opponent played very well. Like my opponent got a little lucky to draw the cards he did, but he also played perfectly to the outs of drawing the cards he needed to draw. I can't really fault him. I think he's actually a relatively known good Storm player as well. I don't remember his last name. He's from Japan. His first name is Kai.
It's Kai Sawatari. Yeah, he's a really good Legacy player. Yeah, and he definitely gave the impression he really knew what he was doing. Yeah, and I remember chatting to you about that at the end of the day and being like, "Yeah, that guy's he's a good player." So
I lost to that. I lost to Maverick. I lost game 1 because I kept a hand that lost to Wasteland and then got Wastelanded. But I think that it was a good hand otherwise. And I think that in the dark, you can't just mulligan hands that lose to Wasteland, especially when it didn't auto lose to Wasteland. I just lost to Wasteland based on the way the game played out. But and then I think I missed sideboarded because I don't really have much experience in the matchup against Maverick, which is kind of a blind spot of mine. But so I lost to Maverick. I lost to Maverick twice, but after I was dead. I played out the last round after I died, and I lost, but I really wasn't taking it seriously, and I mulled to 4 game 1.
Sure.
So I'm not really.
The matchup's
not really too worried about that.
The matchup's generally pretty bad. It's been showing up online more and more since it got a top 8 result, and it's kind of been slowly creeping up anyway. I mean, obviously it's got a good Grixis matchup, so I think the deck's decent. I kind of, I keep thinking about buying Savannah so I can maybe play it, but I always do this with Legacy decks and end up just sleeving Canadian. But so I played Canadian. No surprises. That's Rug Delver for anyone that's not familiar.
It's Mongoose. It's Rug Mongoose.
Rug Mongoose. What did I lose to? I had a really tight set against a good Elves player. Fellow from down south. I lost to Sam Rolfe playing Bug Delver, which was... I think I played that set kind of poorly, but the matchup's a bit rough and I'm still figuring it out. But I think it was a good aligning experience anyway. And then I had some really tough draws against Infect. Well, I drew actually quite well, but my opponent just happened to draw something... I actually think it was 6 Invigorates over 2 games, which was kind of tough.
It's a lot of Invigorates.
It's a whole lot of Invigorates. Those are my losses. I had a really fun tournament though. Played against some really good players, had some really good matches, had a particularly pleasant match against an Italian D&T player. And overall, good tournament. The results, not exactly what we wanted, but for our personal results, but Gary won the whole bloody thing, so it was great. Standard was the follow-up because we had a kind of consolation GP.
You lost at Legacy, so now you get to play Standard, where you don't know what's going on and you pick the wrong deck.
I mean, Standard is in a lot of flux at the moment, and we're not going to kind of bang on about it too much because I think a lot of Articles and podcasts already have kind of covered a story of GP Birmingham, which was essentially red-black dominating, and that would kind of been the rising crescendo of players playing it online and talking to each other and saying that this is the deck we want to play, etc. Nathaniel,
Well, it's basically, yeah. So, I don't know, red-black... I guess we'll talk about this a bit later, but like I do feel like red-black, like it did well at the GP, and it was well positioned at the GP, and everyone's kind of responded to that with like a lot of people responded to that with like, all right, red-black's the best deck in Standard. It's broken, and it's like
no,
it's just fine.
Standard right now, I mean, as you said, can be a little frustrating in that it's very difficult to figure out what exactly we're supposed to be playing, but there are so many options, and the games are really cool, and all the options, in my opinion, are really cool. So I don't know. I'm a big fan of the format right now. I'm still trying to sort out Copenhagen flights and things like that coming up. But let's talk about the deck we played. So we played black-white vehicles, black-white knights, black-white traction.
Black-white mid-rangey
stuff.
Black-white acceptable cards.
Yeah. So
black-white History of Benalia, Heart of Kiran, and Khan are good, right? Yep.
This card's good, and the deck was good. Tournament was not so great for either of us. We played very similar 75s, just kind of the list that we'd been playing on the run-up. We played Ruin Raider, which for me was really good. Trying to go through my losses. I lost to red-black, I think I lost to can't recall. One red-black. I lost to a gift deck. I'm on a red gift deck, which was pretty wild. Murray Gift, red-black, and I lost the mirror to Mengucci, who was also on black-white. The deck's cool. We played Ruin Raider, which I think we've been talking about in the previous weeks. We played a good, healthy amount of Fumigates in the sideboard. We played no main deck Lyra, which I think was really a good call for the weekend. The reason we weren't playing it was because of the Rise of Snake that's playing a lot of Chupacabra, which you can find with Adventurous Impulse. And
but also the fact that there were people responding. Yeah, people were responding to Lyra by playing stuff like Unlicensed Integration, which makes your... Like, Murder is a good card against Baneslayer Angel.
So I think I was pretty happy with the way that we kind of called the weekend in terms of our deck choice, and particularly where we were putting our cards in our 75. A good healthy amount of Fumigate, which for me meant that I didn't lose to green all day, and a good some number of Thopter Arrest, which in the following week after that, I was really impressed with the card over the weekend, so I wanted to play more. And then Jerry's article came out, and he was running 4 across the 75, so I think the card is really well positioned in the deck. It answers a lot of the things that you want to do. I'm not necessarily saying that 4 of is 100% correct right now, but it kills Heart of Kiran.
Killing Heart of Kiran is a big deal.
Yes, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. It kills Heart of Kiran, it kills Phoenix. It kills a lot of the things that you care about in Standard right now. So it's definitely... it needs to be there. Like, obviously, we're not going to bang on about Silo anymore. I think the next question about what you want to be playing in the deck is potentially some number of Doomfall, but Fatal Push, Thopter Arrest, and Cast Out need to be in some numbers. And across your 75, you need to have decent numbers of each. Does anything else that you want to mention about Black-White? I played it at the weekend, just gone. And I was kind of considering playing blue-white, but eventually decided on black-white, just based on the fact that I didn't have time to get a lot of reps between Birmingham and the weekend, and I liked the because we'd built a creatureless version for Birmingham, which Holt played and did all right in the PTQ with on Sunday.
Well, I mean, the creatures version has kind of been building for blue-white. You mean not black-white?
Sorry, we're talking about blue-white.
But the creatures version has kind of been building for a little while. Brian Gottlieb on the Game Podcast started playing this idea that maybe Gearhulk is actually just bad and you should play Pull from Tomorrow instead. And then people started doing that a little bit. And then actually the version that top-8'd and actually got to the finals of Birmingham was the creatureless version with Pull and Forter Fairies in his deck.
Yeah, no, I don't want to I think that's kind of, don't want to go over it too much because it is kind of old news, and I think anyone that's Again, I'm pretty sure we covered this as well.
I mean, I don't think it's super old news. I think that, like, it's important to the future, to going forward in Standard, because I think it's one of the best decks.
Sure.
Still.
I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think that we as a community, not as a community, as a player base, should have come to this conclusion a while ago. And I think that, I mean, this is the version that we were playing in practice, like, a few weeks before the GP, and, you know, none of us wanted to play Gearhulk, really, if we were going to play Blue-White, which only Holt settled on. Actually, is it only Holt? Because I think Brannock was running it, but then went to Red-Black, which was a good call for the weekend.
Obviously. Yeah, Riley was playing Constructor.
Yeah, which was a rough choice for the weekend in general.
When everyone's playing Goblin Chain Whirler, playing Llanowar Elves and Metallic Mimics is not where you want to be.
Yeah. So, yeah, all this just to say that I was going to play Blue-White, didn't get enough reps, so played Black-White, and I lost to... What were my 2 losses? I had a tight set against a Blue-White control deck, which... was kind of tough. I had to fight a lot of Settle the Wreckages and ended up losing game 1, and then had a bit of a tough game 3 on the draw. Anyway, and then I lost to Stephen Barry playing Mono Black Control, which I want to talk about now. Are we done with Blue White and Black White? Can we talk about Mono Black?
So I've been playing Blue White a bit.
Oh yeah,
and
go ahead.
I don't know. I'm not sure I have that much more really to offer. Like, I'm definitely not an expert in the deck by any means, but it certainly feels very powerful, and I think it's well positioned against Red-Black. Mm-hmm. Basically, I think that, like, it's possible the standard format is finally starting to take shape. Because up until this point, it always felt like this amorphous mass. It was like, okay, so Khan is good. Well, at first it was like, Chain Whirler is good, and Steel Leaf Champion is good, and Lyra is good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were kind of like, well, maybe Khan is good. And Blue-White Control is good. Okay, so Heart of Kieran is good. Okay, so this is good. And then everything started to be in this weird spot. Mm-hmm. And the GP kind of crystallized a few things of like, Heart of Kieran is good, and the best thing to pair it with is probably Goblin Chain Whirler.
Yeah.
And then once you're doing that, you can play stuff like Chandra, and you can play stuff like Glorybringer, and you can still play Khan. And so Red-Black kind of solidified itself as probably the best, like, mid-rangey aggro shell, of which there were, like, several floating around. White-Black still kind of has its place, but you don't have to play mopey cards like Knight of Malice that are only sometimes good.
Yeah.
And you get to play very powerful cards like Glorybringer. You don't need to play Lyra to have a great red matchup. You can just play Goblin Chain Whirler, because that card beats, like, the hell out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And now, but because it's crystallized, and now that we have a target, like Blue-White Control was a target for a little while, but it always felt a bit weird as a target because everyone was playing all these other decks as well.
Yeah.
But now that we have a target of like Red-Black, put 6 copies in the top 8 of a GP, like everyone is all on Red-Black.
Mm-hmm.
So now suddenly you can play stuff like Blue-White Control and be like, okay, I'm going to beat Red-Black. And yes, they're playing Heart of Kieran, I will play Gideon's Reproach.
Mm-hmm. Or Sorcerer's Spyglass.
Yeah, and Sorcerer's Spyglass, which is so good against that deck.
It's just a good card in Standard right now, yeah.
I mean, that's true, but it's not good against every deck.
Sure. No, you're right. You're right.
But yeah, you're in a position where, okay, well, we want to target Red-Black. Well, now we want to do that. We'll play Blue-White, for example, and just go way over the top of them and resolve a pull from tomorrow for 7 and have our opponent concede because they recognize that they cannot beat that.
Yeah.
So,
the matchup is
we
good.
have that, but like that's where I feel about Blue. That's what I feel about Blue right now. Is that like you can play it and kind of target Red-Black, and if anyone's still playing Green-Black, you can kind of mostly beat up on them. They have a few tools against you, but you're not that bad. Like post board, it's still not that good for them. And you can mostly be beating up on like stuff like Mono Green, which needs a really fast start to get you. And in general, you can, I think, be in a good place against a lot of the format. But yeah, I also think another direction to take, which I have been interested in. I've played a little bit. I'm playing it today, literally before we started recording. A list that Dan put together. Where did you like?
It's come from a bunch of places. So it's like Pedro Carvalho played it in the mocks, in the mocks, and he said like he was quite hyperbolic about the deck. He was saying that he is bad at Magic, which is why he's dropped from the mocks. But he thinks that this archetype's very well positioned, and if anyone were to like tune the 75 correctly, then it could be like a huge playmaker, basically. Simultaneously, there's been some. I don't think anyone. It's a bit of rumble in the game Discord, basically about like options and things like that, and the deck's gone through a few iterations. It used to, well, some versions still do, but I think they're wrong. Play Dreadshade, and some other versions play these like big payoffs, like Josu Vest style or Demon Lord Bells and Lock, which again, I don't think that these cards are entirely necessary because you just play the Eldest Reborn, and that card smashes mid-range decks.
Yeah, so like this is like I've been trying it out. It's a mono black control deck, I guess I would call it.
Yeah.
You're playing approximately 1 million swamps, and then
a million memorials to fully.
Some utility lands like Alauta Shavarazka, a Field of Ruin. So this is the list that Dan has put together, and that I've been working with, of like Alauta Shavarazka, a Field of Ruin, a couple of Infinite Dead lands, a couple of Scavenger Grounds, and then 4 Memorials to Folly. Which initially I was like, do we have to play 4 tap lands in our goddamn monocolored deck? Like, why are we doing this? And then I actually played with the deck, and I'm like, oh,
this is how you win.
Really great.
Yeah.
We'll put the link to. We'll put like a deck list in the show notes. I guess.
Definitely, we need to. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I feel like the card that best exemplifies the deck is Doomfall. Actually.
Yeah, Doomfall is like, I think in a pretty good spot in Standard right now, and yeah, I think that definitely. Yeah, you're right. That
it just like exemplifies because the whole deck is just like, I am gonna trade with everything you play.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to have something left over.
Yep. And you take over the game with... yeah, you're right. So let's just run through the 75 so that folks have context. So we've run through the lands. Our creature base is 4 Walking Ballista, 4 Gifted Etherborn, 3 Gonti Lord of Luxury. We're playing 1 Chupacabra in the main. We've got some more on the side. 2 Liliana Death's Majesty, 3 Duress, 4 Fatal Push, 3 Doomfall, 4 Vraska's Contempt, 2 Arguel's Bloodfast, and 4 the Eldest Reborn.
Peak and mid-range grind.
Yeah, sideboard's got some interesting options in it. A big good number of cast down to answer Glorybringers post-board. Some filling out the Duresses, the Doomfalls, and the Chupacabras so that we got access to all 4 in our 75. And a good, healthy number of Big Boy Khan for that post-board grind.
And talking about post-board grind, we have 2 copies of Sunset Pyramid.
Yeah.
Draft All-Star from Hour of Devastation.
So this was in Carvalho's deck, and I was heavily unconvinced, and I was like, hey, shouldn't this be Treasure Mat? But in all the mat, like, you don't want to get your treasure, what's it called, Treasure Cove? You don't want to get your Treasure Cove Field of Ruined, and getting the cards straight up front is pretty cool. So yeah, I don't know. It's been pretty decent for me.
I have no idea if Sunset Pyramid is better than Treasure Map, but it was okay for me.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. We also experimented with Glint Sleeve Siphoner, but that meant that we had to play Ether Hub in the main, and that was a general garbage experience for all people involved.
I drew so many hands where my only lands were Ether Hubs in my monocolored deck, and I was like, why is my mana bad? I'm playing 15 swamps.
So
how is my mana this bad in my monocolor deck?
What you tend to do with the deck is, as you say, sort of trade 1 for 1 with people, sometimes 2 for 1 with Gonti and Chupacabra and all these kinds of things, but you're mainly just like using removal spells on things, blocking things with Etherborn.
You're just killing all their stuff.
Yeah, kill all their stuff.
Discarding all the cards in their hand.
The important thing is that you need to kill all their stuff so that the Eldest Reborn's Edict effect is snagging something really good. And then you take over the game with said card, a Bloodfast or a Liliana, usually. In between all of that, you're kind of doing these sick Gonti loops with Memorial to Folly and making people's life sad by playing their own cards against them.
So the deck has definitely impressed me, certainly against lots of... it really preys on mid-range because you just kill all their stuff, and then you have like something big that's hard for them to answer that takes over a game. And I find it's been way more impressive against Control than I expected it to be. I thought that 3 Duresses in the main deck was indicative of a very bad Control matchup. I found that to be not super the case. Control's so slow that even if your opening hand isn't very good, you can generally draw out of it. And you have such powerful hate cards against Control, or like Haymakers, stuff like Argyl's Bloodfast. So I kept a hand that was like 3 lands, double Fatal Push, double Vraska's Contempt, and my opponent went Irrigated Farmland Go, and I was like, oh no, I am dead. I have died. The game is over. Like, how do I... Because I'm used to playing decks where that is true. Like, if you keep a hand with double Fatal Push, and you've basically mulliganed to 5, and in this case it was like, how am I going to make these Vraska's Contempts matter before they just kill me? But I won that game because my opponent decked, because he ran out of ways to win the game.
Yikes.
Because I Vraska's Contempted, or Eldritch Reborned, or Doomfalled every single thing he had in his deck game 1 that was capable of actually winning a game of Magic the Gathering.
That's hilarious. Oh my god.
And Eldritch Reborn is really sick against Control, or way sicker than you think, because you get to like kill their Teferi and make them discard a card, and then get their Teferi. So basically they have to cast out it.
Yeah.
But having this thing that like 2-for-1's them,
it's mental.
Or at least against Teferi they'll often have drawn a card, for example, or they'll either have drawn a card
or
they
discard it.
So.
I mean, they discard a card off the second chapter.
Yeah, but they always cast out it before the discard.
Sure. Yeah, but I mean, the thing about it is that what I've found against those decks is that they untap for like the negate or something, and then you've often just got you can just like play around it basically with Duresses and stuff like that, and just make sure that your Eldest Reborn is just snagging that Planeswalker basically. So
yeah, Gonti is really cool, being able to be like, turn 4, just jam Gonti, and they're like, oh, I counter it, Gonti's really scary, and then you're like, alright, turn 5, another Gonti, and they're like, counter that one too, and you're like, alright, turn 6, pass, in your end step, get back Gonti with Memorial to Folly. I recently had people, I think someone blew up my Arch of Vraska with a Field of Ruin, and then realized they should have blown up the Memorial to Folly.
That's hilarious. I played a match against Ferg last night. He had some pretty brutal mulligans, but Gonti was an absolute superstar, and at one point, I think... what was he trying to Vraska's Contempt? He was trying to Vraska's Contempt something, and I knew that he had it in his hand from a duress previously, but I'd snagged a Censor from his deck with Gonti, and
that's the risky line.
I mean,
you can't even cycle it, Dan.
Oh, it's because he'd missed the land drops, and like it was just
sure. So you're like,
yeah, the Censor was just 100% good because I knew he was on his blue-black Mirari Conjecture deck, so that he'd played at the weekend, which is a Nassif special. That was quite a funny Twitter interaction actually, because
Ferg said like, "Hey, I made the finals of a PPTQ with your deck. Thanks, Nassif." And Nassif was like, that deck's rubbish."
He said
PPTQ was probably really soft.
Yeah, exactly. Just got a low-key bag in on the Scottish Magic scene, which is pretty excellent. So anyway, Mono Black.
This deck is interesting to me because, like, so Red Black rose because Heart of Kirin is good, because Seal Away was good, and because Unlicensed Integration is good, because Lyra was good, if you follow what I just said. But yeah, they rose in response to a bunch of good white cards.
Yeah.
And all these black cards are generally good against the cards that Red Black is playing. So Fatal Push is really good against Heart of Kirin, so you're not actually that worried about their hearts, because you're kind of really good at killing it. And like, all of your cards are pretty good against Unlicensed Disintegration because they either don't cost more mana than it, or they do something. Like, you play Gifted Aetherborn and they disintegrate it, and you're like, okay, that's like fine.
And this is the one. Sorry.
Like you're behind on tempo now, and Gonti. Okay, I drew a card.
Exactly. No, sorry. What I was going to say was that there's been a bit of a rise in the blue-black deck again, and I think that this is. But both the decks are trying to do very similar things. To be clear, the blue-black deck is the kind of old school kind of blue-black mid-range deck, but the blue cards it's playing are like Champion of Wits and Scarab God, usually with sideboard negates, sometimes Hostage Taker. But it's a big mid-range slammer, basically.
I'm not sure how good... So I really am not interested in Champion of Wits right now.
I'm not either. If I'm not playing some kind of gift deck.
If I'm not playing Gift, if I'm not discarding Gift of the God Pharaoh and Angel of Invention, I'm not that interested in playing a 3-mana 2-1.
Yeah, and
to have my opponent play their 3-mana 3-3 that kills it when it ETBs. And I'm not that interested in playing the Scarab God either, because I feel like he's not even that good against like black-red.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're the Disintegration
can't
deck.
Really kill him. But yeah, it's less about Disintegration. Like, Disintegration is your Scarab God deck is theoretically good against Disintegration, because obviously it doesn't actually kill the Scarab God. But they're still definitely aggressively bent against you.
Yeah, I mean, it's where, like you do care if you're actually dying.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, you can't play your 5-drop that then gets disintegrated, and yes, theoretically it didn't matter that, like, because you have card advantage, but it's kind of like back in the day when the control decks would, like, play Torrential Gearhulk on 6, and then it would get disintegrated, and they'd take 3, and then they'd be like, okay, well, I'm just dead. It doesn't matter that I'm drawing 2 cards with Glimmer of Genius off of this Gearhulk. Like, I am just dead.
All these decks are playing, like, Glintsu Siphoner and Champion of Wits. All these cards just get swept up by the Goblin. So I'm much more excited about the mono black version, especially because I just get to play a whole bunch of swamps, which is really, really fun when you're playing a control deck and you don't have to worry about your mana too much unless you play Ether Hubs because you're an idiot. So yeah, and I guess going back to what I was saying originally, like how this deck's evolved, like you don't need to play Dredgehade. Dredgehade's just bad. Don't do it.
Well, it's just not part of the deck's game plan.
Exactly.
We just talked about how the deck's game plan is like. So the deck's game plan is like you eventually. Your opponent runs out of cards, and you don't. And you're left with, like, either a way of taking over the game, of, like, an Eldritch Reborn bringing back something good from your opponent, a Liliana making 2/2s every turn, or, like, sometimes even just a Walking Ballista that you keep feeding mana into, or an Argyl's Bloodfast drawing you a bunch of cards, so you just completely, like, run them over in terms of card advantage. So basically, yeah, you end up in a situation where you have cards and they don't, and then, like, Gifted Etherborn can win the game from there. Gonti Lord of Luxury can win the game from there. Like, your, like, keyword crappy 2/3s can, like, just win the game.
Keyword crappy is, like, the name of the game here. You just end up with all these, like, rando zombie tokens from this Liliana that's just soaked a bunch of damage for you from, like, a Phoenix or something like that while you find the answer to kill it with. And then you just beat them up with all these stupid little 2-power things or their own Glorybringer. And it's pretty fantastic. I will say one thing: the deck can be a little frustrating at times, but it is goddamn marvelous winning with this thing. It feels great.
Yeah, I mean, but like Dreadshade basically just doesn't play into that plan.
Absolutely,
it just gives you something that's like, oh well, now I'm actually upset if they play a Braid because this card didn't do anything. I mean, I guess if you play it later, it's hard to go with a Braid, but like Disintegration is another thing we just talked about, where like it's not good against this deck because it doesn't kill anything relevant. And it doesn't do it in an efficient way, but like Dreadshade is pretty efficient to kill with a Disintegration, and Seal Away isn't very good against this deck because like none of the things you play you really care about being Seal Awayed, but if you play Dreadshade you kind of care about being Seal Away, so it just turns on a bunch of your opponent's cards. It turns them from fine cards into good cards suddenly, which you don't really need to do.
No,
you just don't need to be like hitting your opponent for 7.
No.
It's just not how games get won or lost.
You chip, and then you take over the game and you just, like, swing out with all your little 2-power guys. Or
you just swing with one dude into their Settler wreckage, and you just keep doing it, and you're like, this is what's going to happen. This is the game.
Or you just draw with Bloodfast, dress it out of their hand and kill them. Oh, man,
that's also pretty nice.
So you also don't need to play these big haymakers. Like a lot of the versions were playing Josu Vess, which the whole idea is you play it kicked and just swamp the board with zombies. But so much mana, and you don't need to be doing that because the backside of Josu Vess is like so soft to Disintegration, as you mentioned. One card that I have seen, which is certainly makes for very, very funny play experiences, is Demon Lord Bells Unlock. Case in point was at the weekend at the PPTQ in Dundee when Stephen Murray in the quarters against Danny drew like 4 cards off his Demon Lord Bells Unlock. It was like a Vraska's Contempt, a Chupacabra, an Eldest Reborn, and a Fatal Push. And you're just like, oh,
I mean,
man.
so I definitely don't know how anybody wins that game.
Right.
If they, like, after your opponent has drawn 4 cards off of their 6/6 trampling flyer.
It's just the game is done, right? So I think
But I do sort of agree that I don't think that those sorts of haymakers are really very necessary. I mean, maybe I can see you wanting to play them. It sounds like they're kind of better against stuff like mono red.
Yep.
Stuff where you often want to, like, just, like, close the door.
And I could see that occupying maybe some amount of the Lily slot, but I just want to play a lot of Eldest Reborn. I really think that although the card is super clunky, it is just so crippling if you hit a good edict off it. Because once you hit a good edict, the rest, I mean, it just does the rest of its job and you win the game.
So I do think Eldest Reborn is helped out by Chain Whirler being in the format.
Yes.
Because everyone is playing Chain Whirler, everyone's like, oh, I can't really play my, like, X1 decks.
Absolutely. No, you're definitely...
Which means that, like, occurrences of Llanowar Elves are far lower than they should be. Occurrences of, like,
mono
all of the,
white
like,
tokens and things.
Yeah, all those sorts of decks where normally Eldest Reborn looks entirely foolish.
Yeah, like Legion's Landing is unplayable right now.
Yeah. And because of that, you can actually play your 5-mana Edict that has, like, a big payoff in a couple of turns, because you're going to get enough board impact out of that Edict. It helps that we're playing stuff like Walking Ballista, so if we do run into the Llanowar Elves guy, we're not just like, oh, my Edict is bad.
Yep.
But, you know, it also helps the fact that half the format is incredibly hostile to playing lots of small creatures.
No, you're absolutely right. That's definitely, like, you know, its success is kind of off standard sort of...
Yeah, I mean, I think
itself
that this
to
is
an extent, but I mean, it's really just Chain Whirler.
One of the things I like about this deck right now is that I think it's a product of current standard. Like, this would not be a deck I would take into week 1.
Yep.
Because, A, main deck Duress in week 1 sounds madness, and I'm still not convinced it's not madness, but it's been okay so far, so hey. But B, like, you're playing a bunch of cards that are kind of, like, slightly underrated. Like Doomfall, which is, like, mostly just fine, but
again,
it's good
needed
now.
its effect because nobody's playing, like, Legion's Landing. Again.
Yeah. Yeah, whereas, like, early on, people are playing Legion's Landing because they haven't really figured out that, Chain Whirler's really insane. Good.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll try Demon Lord Bells and Lock. I just don't think it's entirely necessary and opens you up to some disintegration shenanigans, which I'm not really into. I think that you're right. The deck is definitely a product of standard, and some people kind of shy away from that. I will say that the deck list looks very ugly, I guess is the word for it, at face value. Like, if you just look at the 75, you're just like, what are we doing? You know, sort of touching on what you said with the main deck duresses and all that kind of stuff. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you look at it and you're like, why do we have 4 tap lands in our mono deck? Why are we playing 3 main deck duresses?
How can you possibly play 4 Eldest Reborn and main deck Bloodfast? What is happening? But
yeah. And to be fair, I've had some really bad games against mono red. Because turns out Duress is bad against the deck that's looking to get Hellbent as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I also think that some mono red's kind of coming up a little bit. There's these mono red versions that are splashing black for some things. I will say that this deck has a fantastic green matchup. The green matchup's like, yeah, I mean...
You gotta teach me about that, man. Like, all I've faced is green decks that draw exactly the same amount of blossoming defenses as I draw removal spells.
Real.
I had a setup where, like, my opponent attacks with, like, a Ronus and a... Actually, I don't remember exactly how this worked out. Maybe it wasn't a Ronus. Basically, my opponent ends up attacking... No, he attacks with a Ronus and an Aethersphere Harvester, and I have 2 Fatal Pushes in my hand, 2 mana available, and a Walking Ballista with on 1 counter on the board. Okay. My opponent has also has a Llanowar Elves, which is what he crewed the Aethersphere Harvester with.
Okay.
I ping the Llanowar Elves to kill it after blocking the Ronus, and then I Fatal Push the Harvester.
Yeah.
Now, I'm fully aware my opponent probably has a Blossoming Defense in hand. He's been playing as if he has 1.
Yep.
And he has 2 cards left in hand.
Got it.
So I'm like, he's probably got the blossoming defense. So it's fine. I've got my second fatal push. So I fatal push the thing, he blossoming defenses, and I'm like, okay, cool. Fatal push it again in response to the blossoming defense. And he's like, he thinks, and I'm like, don't you dare.
Don't you
dare have the last card in your hand be a goddamn blossoming. It's a goddamn blossoming defense,
no.
Dan. I take 7, he gains 7, and I don't affect the board at all, and I die.
So I was going to say that although you're not playing Fumigate, this is where your Edicts are great. Like, Edict's always hitting something good out of that deck, and you don't care about goddamn blossoming defense. You just Doomfall them and Eldest Reborn them, and you're usually pinging or pushing the elves, so they don't really matter. And you can also do that to the Branch Walkers and the whatchamacallums. What's the 3-mana one? Why can't I remember the 3-mana one? Jade Light Ranger.
Steel Leaf Champion. Oh, Jade Light Ranger.
Yeah, the one you can actually ping with Ballista, not the one that it's very difficult to.
You can ping Steel Leaf Champion with Ballista.
So I think that the green matchups are good. I think Snake is much better than the mono green, because Snake is usually playing like big numbers of Adventurous Impulse before Blossoming Defense.
Well, Snake's just slower.
Yeah, Snake is just slower, and it just
so you get more time to get to Eldest Reborn.
Yeah, and Snake always has a hard time against like spot removal because it's it needs its snakes to stick around. So just more about the deck going forward. The blue-white control matchup I thought would be a lot worse than it was. So did you. I still don't think it's really hard to say. It's really hard to put a percentage on it, but suffice to say that it's not awful.
I'm really coming around on it. I think it might actually just be good.
Yeah, because like I was kind of wanting to say that, but I wasn't sure. Like, yeah, I've only played it twice, so I need more data.
And me too. Like this is all very anecdotal and not very data driven. But I've basically found that in game 1 you can actually run them out of cards.
Yeah.
And run them out of relevant win conditions quite well, because actually Settle and Fumigate and Seal Away, all their removal actually isn't very good against you.
Yeah, no, you're
not playing
right.
that many creatures. All of them do something,
and eventually,
unless you draw like all your fatal pushes, almost all the rest of your cards are live in the matchup.
Yeah,
they're either like Gifted Aetherborns, which probably end up getting like cleaned up, so that card isn't that good, but it can be okay to like often. Like, what you end up doing is, like, getting a bit of a life buffer to be able to draw more cards with Bloodfast. Because your opponent, like, if they don't draw Seal Away, they just never really want to get rid of the Gifted Aetherborn.
Yeah.
You have main deck Duress, which is really helpful in game 1. It's just not something they're prepared for. You have main deck Doomfalls, which is another thing, because, like, that card, obviously, is kind of bad, but it can kill a Hazoret, or it can take a Settle the Wreckage, and, that's kind of why it's being played. And, like, yeah, I guess Chupacabra is bad, but all the rest of your cards are actually pretty good. Eldest Reborn is shockingly good, because you have to, like, take it to Fairy. Because, like, especially right now, because they aren't really used to the deck existing, I think. So I play against blue-white opponents who'll, like, play a Teferi on 5, and, like, untap 2 lands, holding up, like, maybe an Essence Scatter or a Syncopate or something. Actually, very rarely Essence Scatter or Syncopate. Like, there'll be an empty board, they'll see an opportunity to play Teferi, they'll slam Teferi, and I'll be like, okay, the Eldest Reborn, and they'll be like, I don't have a counterspell up, because I only play 1 negate main deck, and I don't have my Syncopate. I guess I'll sacrifice Teferi. And then they untap, and they're like, I guess I need to cast out this
and then
now,
you, like,
because otherwise I'm going to discard a card, and they'll reanimate my Teferi, so can't really let that happen. So, yeah, guess I'll just cast out this Eldritch Reborn, and then you're like, cool, sick. Liliana Death's Majesty, plus, go. And they're like, oh no. But yeah, I have not won a game 1 against blue-white by attacking. I have only won game 1s by running them out of win cons.
Yeah, and then you just beat them up with your crappy creatures.
No, they deck.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think both are feasible.
I actually think beating them up with crappy creatures is not very feasible.
You don't think so?
But they end up, like, you know how I talked about how, like, Settle and Fumigate and stuff aren't very good against you? That's because your plan isn't to kill them with crappy creatures. If your plan is to kill them with crappy creatures, then they have so many ways of killing your crappy creatures. And you don't have that many creatures.
I just figured that, like, with Lily just, like, ticking up and stuff like that, you can probably just, like, run them out of stuff.
Yeah, but you only have 2 Lilies, and they're definitely getting cast out or disallowed.
Yeah.
I basically found that this deck isn't good enough at winning the game to actually beat blue-white control in like a straight-up, like, I am going to hit you with creatures plan. But it is good enough at stopping your opponents from winning the game that it can stop blue-white control from winning the game.
Interesting.
Because, like, 3 Duresses, 3 Doomfalls, and 4 Vraska's Contempts, and 4 Eldest Reborns is so much stuff for them to get through that you often end up killing all of their Teferis and all of their Gideons.
And they just can't win the game, and then at that point you're like, okay.
And the only way they can win the game at that point is by milling you with Hypno Rivulets, which only works if they haven't drawn a million cards, which they never don't do.
Yeah. They're like pull
Especially
for a
the
million.
pull versions.
You're like, yep, that's fine.
They pull for 7, and you're like, that's cool, buddy. I'm still going to draw enough removal spells because I'm literally going to draw more removal spells than you have counter spells in your deck.
Yeah. I will say one thing that I played this matchup last night, which is kind of a deck on the rise at the moment. Kind of a slow one, but the blue-white gift deck's popping up again, and that
sounds atrociously bad.
Yeah, it's
because
really
we have no
bad.
way of getting rid of a gift.
It's really bad. Like, you need to, like, you don't.
The Eldritch Reborn sounds terrible.
It's horrible,
against a gift
man.
deck.
It's really horrible. So basically, like, you discard them a bunch, but then you're not killing them, so they just end up doing their thing anyway. Like, you have hands where you're like, oh, I've got double duress. Like, I'm just gonna, like, take their strategic planning or their charter course, whatever their card draw spell is. I'm going to take their refurbish. I'm just going to, like, mess them up, basically. I mean, I did get stuck on 3.
I'm trying to think about it. I think Lost Legacy sounds like a sort of answer because you can take the refurbish.
Yeah.
But then they just start playing gifts.
Yeah, I think that
I guess you can Lost Legacy name Angel.
I think you might need to do the Amonkhet one.
Oh, Dispossess?
I think so.
Oh my god, we might actually be doing that.
It's horrible, but I honestly think that the matchup is, like, really bad. And as I said, this deck's kind of on the rise. It's certainly in the kind of top 10 decks kicking around in Standard right now. And
yeah, I could see playing that instead of the Deadeye Trackers.
Yeah, because we've got these couple of flex slots, which we're not sure what we're doing with. So after last night's foray into futility, I feel like Dispossess might be the name of the game.
I mean, like, I hate surgical or like cranial extraction effects. I hate playing them. They are bad, but we're mono black and we don't have a lot of choices. Exactly. And I can definitely see Dispossess being the right choice if you want to beat Gift. I think that dodging Gift could be a viable choice for a little while, but if that deck it gets bigger, and like that is another deck where, yes, you're playing what about Champion of Wits, but you don't really care that much about Chain Whirler.
Exactly.
Champion of Wits is not in your deck. In fact, you're often happy for it to die. It's not in your deck to, like, stick around. And yeah, you play a creature that makes tokens and is a 2-1, but it's never actually a 2-1 on the battlefield. And like, yeah, like, you don't really care about License Disintegration is the other thing.
Yeah.
And you're pretty good against Glorybringer because you make 6/6s. Fly and have lifelink
and haste, and vigilance,
Yeah, I can definitely see that deck being quite well positioned against red black. I don't know what it's like against blue white control.
I think it's pretty heinous. Like,
it sounds bad. It just sounds quite hard to resolve your stuff.
Yeah. And like,
but I mean, it's possible it gets a lot better post board.
Potentially. I mean, I don't know. You'd have to play some number of, like, I mean, obviously you can play like a buttload of negate. You can probably play some number of, like, Jace's Defeat if you're really teching for it. And the versions I played against played Spell Pierce. Spell Pierce is really good against mono black clunkers. Yeah, it was pretty horrible.
I'm going to play my 5-drop non-creature spell. Oh, no. Oh, you pierced it. Oh, no.
So bad. I was trying to contempt something and I just, like, died. And I was like, oh, very good. Yes.
You have me, yes.
Yeah,
good, sir.
Well done. So I think that is potentially a knock on the deck that we're describing. Outside of that, I still need to explore a lot of the matchups. We've covered control. I think it's a mid-range killer. We talked about green as well as red-black. I think that the mono-red matchup is pretty rough, and we might need to play some number of, like, essence extraction or something, but I always find that really tough because
I'm still not even sure if... So Essence Extraction doesn't actually kill any of the relevant things.
This is the
red.
thing. And like we're already playing like a good number of cast down, and I think that we're actually just playing the right cards. It might just be a matter of understanding what the correct configuration is. And maybe missing something.
It definitely feels like against red, it's slightly harder to run them out of cards. Not because they draw a lot exactly, but because, weirdly enough, a lot of their cards actually get quite good value if you get into the late game.
Yep.
And it's hard to exile all of the ones you need to exile. Mm-hmm. I found the versions playing Scrap Heap Scrounger even more problematic.
Yes, this is what
suddenly you need to exile their Scrap Heaps, and their Kenras, and their Hazarets, and their Phoenixes, and you can kind of like kill a Phoenix with a kill spell and then Ballista the token, but you don't always have that luxury, and I've just found myself to be in a position where it's kind of awkward a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, it's just like the initial kind of, the initial beatdown is problematic. Chainwhirler...
Aetherborn's not as much of a roadblock as you would like it to be.
Yeah, Chainwhirler matches up really well against Aetherborn. Aetherborn's real strength is against the green decks.
Everyone who's playing Hydra... I've seen a reasonable amount of Hydra now.
Hydra's on the rise, because Unlicensed Disintegration is the name of the game, so it makes sense.
And like Aetherborn and Gonti are both very good against Hydra, especially the mono green decks, because they play a Hydra and you play a Gonti, and they kind of stare at it and they're like, I can never kill this.
Yep, I just have to run my big thing into it.
Yeah, I can never attack with my Hydra because that Gonti is just going to kill it.
Yeah,
God damn it.
It's a little bit frustrating that Steel Leaf Champions clause means that Gonti and Aetherborn can't block it, but it essentially means that you have to kind of figure out a way, and as I said, cast down post board is really good. You end up playing like 4 Chupacabras and Memorial to Follies to like buy them back, so you just run them out of stuff. And usually win as long as they don't draw all of their blossoming defenses you've described. But even then, you've got edicts. So green's pretty good. Mid range in general is pretty good. Red's...
I think it depends on whether or not they draw their blossoming defenses in their vehicles. Those are in the games I've lost, or when they draw like Heart of Kirin's or Aethersphere Harvesters and ways to protect them.
Sure,
because obviously the edicts can't take those out.
Yep. And then red's a bit sketch, and gift sounds miserable, and we probably have to play Dispossess. But more data required. It's just kind of interesting what we've been playing this week. We're not necessarily saying that it's the be-all, end-all. It's just an interesting archetype that I don't think is getting a whole much of coverage.
I think it definitely has legs. I think it has the potential to be a very strong player in Standard.
Definitely, and I think that figuring out the 75 is difficult. So we will post what we've got right now. I think by the time this episode comes up, it might have changed a little, but I'm pretty happy with the way that testing's been going, essentially. Do we have anything else Standard related?
Not hugely.
Yeah.
That's been most of what I've been thinking about for Standard.
Yeah. So what have we got coming up? There's Copenhagen coming up in a couple of weeks' time. I just checked the flights and they're only like 65 quid, which is pretty great. So I'll look at ACOM and stuff like that, and we can sort something. Maybe stay with some of the Glasgow guys. I'm not sure who's still looking, but we'll put out some feelers.
Are any of the other guys from the Vault going to Copenhagen?
I don't think so. I'll check it out, but I think it's like a bit of a quiet one. I know.
But so I kind of want to go to Copenhagen and play Mono Black. I feel like that might be a good...
Me too. Like, right now, I'm ordering the cards and everything, but Standard's moving so fast at the moment that it's really difficult to see if, what's going to be good. Like, things are changing at an alarming rate. It's very, very exciting. It's very difficult to settle on something that's over 2 weeks away. But right now, as things stand, I'm definitely keen on this, and that's what I'm going to be... just what I'm going to be grinding out this week, just to try and figure out what the right 75 is. Just more on the topic of GPs, I want to give another shout out to Gary again. I know that we sort of eternalized all over it at the beginning of the episode, but that was so brilliant and so fantastic. Also, big shout out to the judges. The tournament was extremely well run. Probably one of the best GPs in terms of tournament organization that I've been to. It's
Yeah. This tournament was like, especially for having two GPs going on at the same time over the course of the was it the Saturday? Yeah. Over the course of Saturday, there were two GPs going on at the same time, and it honestly like ran really, really smoothly. And rounds all went on time, which is like
a miracle.
That's really great.
It's insane.
Do you remember Liverpool?
Yes. Oh my god.
Like that was one of the last GPs that was run before Channel Fireball got the like exclusive.
It was Cascade, wasn't
Monopoly, basically. Yeah, it was Cascade. There was a really clear feeling of, oh, you've got a problem? Put it in the box, mate. We'll have a look at it next time we run one of these.
Never.
And there was a so it was sealed, and people arrived like late to reg their decks, or they were delayed or something like that. And there were rounds. Like, they were starting round 3 who had, 20-minute time extensions.
Yeah. It was...
And so, and because it's sealed, they'll go to time, because it's goddamn sealed.
Yep.
And so, the day ended so late, because it was already a sealed GP, and then all the rounds were, 20 minutes after time, and it was just the worst.
I remember going to the restaurant and just being like, what the hell happened today? My brain doesn't work. So... Birmingham was fantastic. Quite the opposite of everything we just described. So, props to the judges, props to the TOs. Real good stuff. Anything else before we finish off the episode?
I don't think so. Standard's pretty good.
Yep.
Khan's probably too good, but, they're not going to ban him, because Standard's still fun. And they don't ban cards in Standards that people are playing. And I don't know. He's definitely too good. And they probably shouldn't have printed him as good as he is, but it's just going to be something that happens. So there's no real use in worrying too much about it.
Exactly.
Walking Ballista's too good as well. And so's Heart of Kieran, probably. But those are all leaving soon. Oh, and Ravnica. We're going back to Ravnica.
Yeah,
I'm so excited. We're going to have really good mana.
The mana's going to be crazy. If we get shocks and checks, that's just...
We're definitely getting shocks. Yeah. There's no way they go back to Ravnica when they don't reprint shocks.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's going to be great. I'm excited. So yeah, let's... think... when does spoiler season start for that?
A million years away.
Okay, never mind then.
We don't even have, core set spoilers yet.
We will talk about that
We'll talk about that in a million years when it's actually relevant. I'm just excited because I want shocks in my Standard and I want gold cards that are pushed.
Yeah.
New charms, Dan. We get new charms.
I forgot about that. That's very exciting. Maybe we just get the same charms.
Yeah, Ravnica has really cool cards in it.
Yeah, no, it's going to be really good. I'm dead excited.
I would love to play a Blue Red control deck with Izzet Charm. Izzet Charm is just God, I draft that card in cubes way more than it actually deserves.
I want to play... What do I want to play? Advent of the Worm? Oh, I love that card.
God damn it, Dan. Stop talking about nonsense. You play Advent of the Worm?
Smiter.
You want to play 4 mana 5/5s, Dan? That's not exciting. Why would you want to play a 4 mana 5/5? Play a 2 mana Shock, or Spell Pierce, or Careful Study.
I mean that sounds good as well. I'm in for that.
No, Dan, it's too late. You've already broken my heart.
Sullied it. Okay. Well, it's all exciting stuff. Thanks very much for joining us tonight, guys. We've been From the Vault.
Join us next week for From the Vault episode 10.
Oh, you didn't do your bit.
I didn't do my bit. So this From the Vault. So From the Vault 9 was From the Vault lore, which I think that this episode was sort of about lore. It was about Scottish magic lore a little.
Yeah,
I think it's a bit tenuous, but it's okay. Next week is Transform. So, get ready for that, guys. We're going to flip into an entirely new card, which has different abilities, and they're just as underwhelming as the front half.
I mean, there were some good cards in Transform.
Yeah, but none of them were called Arlencord, Dan.
Oh, that's true. Man, I'll sign
Remember that card? Remember how it was going to be the best? It was, everyone was so hyped. They were this is going to be the best. Look at it. It has 5 abilities.
Oh, man.
It costs 4 mana. It makes a 2/2. Gideon makes a 2/2. That's so good. And then it was not good.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was bad because the play patterns didn't make any sense. It was really hard to make it do what you wanted it to do.
That card was
and then
weird.
Avacyn was better. Oh, and also there wasn't any good green-red decks. So what were you playing your stupid green-red Planeswalker in?
Yeah.
Except Vintage. Vintage plays Arlencord. If you're not aware, Oath of Druids decks play Arlencord, because the only thing better than getting a Griselbrand is getting a 9/9 Griselbrand with haste.
Yeah.
I don't understand why that's necessary if you have a 7/7 flying lifelinking Yawgmoth's bargain
Because
in play.
I'm sure there's
But
really absurd.
apparently it is.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about playing Oath in Vintage. I played it once to a 3/3 in a challenge, and
Good
that
job.
is the extent of my experience with that archetype. The people who win with it play Arlencord and Xenagos the Reveler and Inferno Titan, and I don't know what Vintage is anymore.
I mean, I just want
because those are all nonsense cards.
It sounds like Nick Fit or something when we're talking about these big stupid things. Anyway,
I mean, everything in Vintage is Nick Fit, because everything in Vintage has way more mana than it should.
that's true.
So everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I can probably play this like stupid 5-drop because I have Sol Ring in my deck."
It's all good.
And like, I'll just play Sol Ring. That card's unreasonable. Your Vintage.
All right, I feel like this is a good moment to tail off.
Yeah, almost certainly. It's a good moment to end on. I
Outside
think,
of is
the
such a
image of
mess. It's amazing.
people playing Arlencord in Vintage. I think that this is a good sign off. I like signing off with
I'm into
vintage
it.
interesting facts.
It's messy. Anyway, thanks very much for joining us tonight, guys. We've been From the Vault, and you've been fantastic.
You remembered.